The old veteran walked through the junkyard, the same way he always did, slow and steady, with his boots kicking up dust around the rusted metal piles. He came here whenever he needed parts for small projects he built at home. It kept his hands busy and his mind calm. The place was quiet most days, only the sound of metal shifting when the wind passed through it. He liked that silence. It made him feel like the world had paused for a moment. But on this day, something felt different. The air seemed heavier, as if it carried a secret he was not meant to ignore. He stopped near a large heap of old machine parts and wires, listening. At first, he thought it was just the wind brushing against a loose piece of sheet metal. But then he heard a low sound, almost like a growl, but too weak to be a real threat. It was the sound of something alive, trying not to be noticed. He frowned and stepped closer to the noise. His years of training had taught him to trust small sounds. Many times in his past life, danger had announced itself in whispers instead of shouts. He moved aside a broken engine part, then another, and soon found a half-crushed metallic container buried under the junk. It looked nothing like the machines he had seen before. Its metal surface had strange marks and a dull shine, as if it came from far away. The container was cracked open on one side. The sound came again, this time softer. He crouched down and leaned closer. Inside the broken pod, he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. The eyes were tired, scared, and yet holding a strange intelligence that made him freeze for a moment. The creature inside looked like a panther, but not like any panther he had ever seen. Its fur was black, but not the normal kind of black. It seemed to absorb the light around it. It had patches of rough skin, long scars across its side, and a body that looked painfully thin, as if it had been starving for days. The creature looked old, too old for the kind of strength such a body once must have carried. Its breathing was slow and shaky. He did not move at first. The creature stared at him, unsure of his intentions. He understood that feeling. He had once been alone, injured, and afraid in enemy territory. He knew the look of a being that had been abandoned and was holding on to life only because it refused to give up. He whispered softly, trying to calm it. The creature's ears twitched at the sound of his voice. It did not growl this time. Instead, it lowered its head, almost as if it accepted that he was not a threat. He looked around the junkyard. No one else was nearby. The owner of the place was sitting far at the entrance, busy with a small radio. The veteran turned his eyes back to the broken container. He knew nothing about this creature. He did not know where it came from or how it ended up here. But he knew suffering when he saw it. Leaving it here felt wrong. He slowly reached out his hand, keeping his movements steady. The creature flinched, but did not strike. He gently touched its side, feeling how hot its skin was. Fever, dehydration, wounds that needed care. It was barely surviving. He knew he should walk away. Any normal person would do that. It was easier to pretend he saw nothing. Safer, too. But he had lived long enough to know that turning away from something helpless leaves a mark on the soul. He had enough marks already. He could not add another. He placed both hands under the creature, ignoring the pain in his own joints. Lifting it was not easy. The creature was heavier than it looked, and its body trembled weakly as he carried it out of the pod. It did not fight him. It simply hung in his arms, too exhausted to resist. The junkyard owner looked up at him as he walked toward the truck. He asked what he had found. The veteran kept his answer simple. He said he found an injured animal and needed to take it home. The owner shrugged and warned him that strange lights had been seen in the sky the night before. Maybe it had something to do with this. But the veteran did not care about theories or mysteries at that moment. All he cared about was that the creature needed help. He placed the panther gently on the back seat of his old truck. The creature curled into a tight shape, its breathing heavy but steady. He covered it with an old blanket he kept in the truck for cold nights. As soon as he did, the creature closed its eyes, almost relieved. The drive home was silent. Every time he glanced in the mirror, he saw the creature watching him with half-open eyes. Not aggressive, not angry, just confused and tired. He spoke quietly from time to time, telling it that he would not harm it. The creature lifted its head slightly, as if it understood. When he arrived at his small cabin, he carried the creature inside with the same care he would give a wounded soldier. He placed it near the fireplace on a soft mat. The warmth made the creature relax a little. He cleaned its wounds as best as he could with his basic supplies. At first, the creature flinched, but then it allowed him to continue, trusting his gentle touch. As he worked, he noticed strange patterns in its fur, lines that glowed faintly in the dim room. Not bright, just a soft shimmer, as if they held some hidden energy. He did not understand it, but he felt no fear. Whatever this creature was, it was too weak to cause trouble. It needed rest more than anything. He brought it a bowl of water. The creature drank slowly, its tongue moving carefully. Then he offered food. It sniffed it, uncertain, but eventually took small bites. Hours passed like that. He watched it regain a little strength. He had seen many wounded beings in his life, and he had learned that survival is not just about treatment. It is also about trust. And somehow, without words, the creature had decided to trust him. When night fell, the veteran sat near the fireplace, his eyes on the creature. It looked up at him, the glow in its eyes softer now. It gave a small sound that almost felt like gratitude, or maybe relief. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. He had not felt that in a long time. Saving this creature was not something he planned. It was something he simply knew he had to do. Outside, the world remained quiet. Inside, in the gentle flicker of firelight, an old veteran and an old alien panther rested under the same roof, both survivors in their own ways, both waiting to see what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, the old veteran woke up to the soft sound of movement from the corner of his cabin. The alien panther, though still weak, had shifted slightly during the night. Its eyes were half open, observing him with quiet curiosity. He smiled softly. It was a strange feeling, waking up and seeing another life in the room, not a human life, but a life that mattered. Something about it felt important, more important than the old projects he spent hours on. He got up slowly, feeling the stiffness in his joints from years of wear and tear. Every movement reminded him that age came with costs, but also that experience gave him patience. He moved toward the panther, speaking in his soft, calm voice. He offered water first, letting it lap at the bowl slowly. He noticed that its breathing was steadier than yesterday, though it still looked fragile. Food came next. He had scavenged some meat from the local market, enough to feed himself and the creature. The panther sniffed it cautiously, uncertain if it was safe. He understood the hesitation. If he were in a strange place, surrounded by unknown dangers, he would feel the same. He put the food closer and sat nearby, letting it decide when it felt safe to eat. Gradually, it took small bites, still keeping its body low and cautious. He didn't rush it. He knew that trust could not be forced. While it ate, he looked at the markings on its fur again. The glowing lines fascinated him. They seemed to shift slightly as the panther moved, as if they were alive. He had never seen anything like it. He had seen soldiers with tattoos that glowed under certain light, but nothing natural like this. He wondered where it had come from, and what kind of life it had before ending up abandoned in that junkyard. For a moment, he imagined the panther running through forests of distant planets, guarding something precious, until age and injury left it stranded and alone. After breakfast, he carefully helped the panther move to a softer mat, closer to the fire. The warmth seemed to comfort it, and for the first time, it stretched its legs and yawned. The veteran watched quietly, feeling a connection growing stronger. There was something about helping a creature that had clearly been discarded, something about giving life back to the weak that touched him in a way he had not expected. It reminded him of old comrades he had lost in wars, of times when small. Acts of care had made the difference between survival and death. Over the next few days, he devoted himself to caring for the panther. He cleaned its wounds, fed it regularly, and made sure it stayed hydrated. He even built a small ramp so it could move more easily from one side of the cabin to another. Each time it moved a little farther or showed curiosity about its surroundings, he felt a quiet joy. It was a simple thing, but seeing life return to something broken was deeply satisfying. The panther, too, began to respond in small ways. At first, it only watched him. Then it started following him around the cabin, keeping close, but not demanding attention. It would occasionally nuzzle his hand, and once it even purred softly, a sound he had never expected from an alien creature. Those small moments made him feel that they were beginning to understand each other. Words were unnecessary. They shared something deeper: patience, care, and the simple recognition of life. One evening, he heard a faint noise outside. He looked out the window and saw a few lights moving near the edge of his property. They were strange, precise, and deliberate. His heart tightened. He had learned to sense danger from a lifetime of experience. But when he turned back to check on the panther, he saw that it had sensed it too. Its ears were alert, and its glowing markings flared softly. It was not scared like before. It was cautious and ready. The veteran realized that whatever had left the panther abandoned might not be far behind. He had to be ready. He moved quietly, making sure the creature stayed calm. He did not want it to panic, not now when it had begun trusting him. He also felt a strange pride. It seemed that the panther, despite its frail appearance, had strength he could sense even without words. That night, he stayed awake, keeping a careful watch while the panther rested. He noticed little things: the way it twitched its tail, the soft sounds it made in sleep, the way its glowing markings seemed to pulse with life. He felt protective, a sense of responsibility he had not felt in years. Life had brought him here, to this quiet cabin, to care for a creature that many would have ignored or discarded. Over the next week, he continued his routine, tending to wounds, feeding it, and keeping it safe. He even started talking to it more, not expecting it to respond in words, but because it seemed to listen. The panther would tilt its head, blink slowly, and occasionally move closer when he sat down. They developed an unspoken rhythm. He was careful not to crowd it, understanding that recovery required patience, not force. He also began noticing small signs of intelligence. The panther seemed to understand simple gestures and commands. When he pointed to the water, it would move toward the bowl. When he tapped lightly on the floor, it would come closer. Sometimes he caught it studying him in a way that suggested it was thinking, not just reacting. Those moments made him smile quietly to himself. There was more to this creature than met the eye, and he felt honored to witness it. Life became simple and focused in those days. He did not think about his past victories or failures. He only thought about the creature in front of him and what it needed to survive. He realized that caring for someone else, even a non-human, had a way of healing parts of himself he had long ignored. He slept better, moved more carefully, and even laughed quietly when the panther did something unexpectedly clever, like knocking over a small container and then looking at him as if asking for help. Then came the night when he noticed something extraordinary. As he fed it, the panther's glowing markings brightened more than usual. The patterns shifted, almost like they were alive, and for the first time, he felt a surge of awe mixed with wonder. It was as if the creature was showing him a hidden strength, something that had survived its abandonment. He did not fully understand it, but he did not need to. He only needed to be there, to watch, and to care. By the end of that week, the panther could move more freely around the cabin. It was still cautious, still wary of sudden movements or loud noises, but it was recovering. The veteran felt a quiet satisfaction he had not felt in a long time. He had saved it from being forgotten, and in return, it was beginning to trust him completely. Their bond was growing, fragile but strong, built on simple acts of care and understanding. He knew challenges lay ahead. He had a feeling that others might come looking for the creature, that the world outside might not accept what he had taken in. But for now, in the warmth of his cabin, with the creature resting peacefully nearby, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had made a choice to help, and it was proving worth every ounce of effort. The veteran looked at the panther one last time before lying down to sleep. Its eyes met his, a silent understanding passing between them. They were two lives brought together by chance, yet now connected by care and trust. Outside, the world could wait. Inside, life was quietly returning to something beautiful, something neither had expected, but both desperately needed. The days that followed were different from anything the old veteran had expected. Each morning, he woke to find the alien panther moving more confidently, stretching its legs and exploring the cabin with curiosity. It would circle the small furniture, sniffing everything, its glowing markings faintly pulsing with life. The veteran would watch quietly, sitting in his worn chair, a cup of tea in hand, feeling a strange mix of pride and wonder. It was fascinating to see something so powerful in appearance, yet gentle in recovery. He began noticing more subtle details about the creature. Its ears could rotate like a radar, picking up the softest sounds outside. Its eyes, even while resting, followed every small movement. It had a grace in its movements that reminded him of dancers he had once seen, strong yet careful, precise yet fluid. Watching it, he realized that despite being abandoned, it carried dignity and intelligence that no one had recognized. As the veteran moved around, fixing small things in the cabin or working on little projects, the panther would follow, keeping a watchful distance but never leaving his side. He started talking to it more, not out of expectation of an answer, but because it had become a companion in the quiet hours. He spoke of simple things, the weather, the rusted metal he had found yesterday, memories of his past that were neither sad nor happy, but simply part of him. The panther would tilt its head or make small movements, and he felt it understood him. One afternoon, he decided it was time to let the creature stretch beyond the safety of the cabin. He carefully helped it outside into the small yard behind his home. The sunlight reflected off its black fur, highlighting the strange glowing patterns even more. At first, it hesitated, looking around nervously. He stayed silent, giving it time. Slowly, it stepped onto the grass, sniffing and crouching low as if assessing every inch of the world around it. The veteran stood a few steps behind, watching closely, ready to intervene if needed. After a while, the panther began exploring more freely, walking across the yard, climbing over rocks, and even investigating the shed at the edge of the property. Its confidence grew with every step, and the veteran felt a warmth in his chest he had not known for years. This creature, once abandoned and broken, was reclaiming its strength. It was a powerful reminder that life could endure, even in the harshest circumstances. As the panther grew stronger, small, unexpected behaviors began to emerge. It would nuzzle against the veteran's legs, not demanding attention, but seeking comfort. Sometimes it would play with pieces of rope or old metal, showing a sense of curiosity and intelligence. One evening, it caught a small animal near the edge of the yard, yet it did not harm it. Instead, it held the creature gently, observing it, and then released it unharmed. The veteran watched in awe. There was wisdom in its actions, a patience that reminded him of old soldiers he had once respected, those who knew when to fight and when to show restraint. The nights became a special time for them. The veteran would sit near the fire while the panther rested, and the glow from its markings lit the room with a soft, warm light. He began noticing how the creature's eyes reflected the flames, almost like it was learning from the flickering patterns. Sometimes it would nuzzle his hand or rest its head near him. These small moments were more meaningful than any words. They shared a silent understanding, built on trust, care, and survival. One day, the veteran decided to test how far the creature's intelligence extended. He placed small objects on the ground, a piece of rope, a wooden stick, and a metal can. Then he pointed at each one and gave a soft command, not expecting much. To his surprise, the panther moved carefully to each item, observing, sniffing, and even pawing at them in the order he had indicated. The veteran chuckled quietly. He had never seen such a combination of intelligence and instinct in one being. It was remarkable. He also began noticing changes in the panther's markings. During moments of rest, they would glow softly, but when it focused on something, whether observing a movement outside or listening to his voice, the patterns brightened. The veteran wondered if it was a form of communication, or maybe an energy he did not understand. Whatever it was, it fascinated him. Each night, he would study the markings, feeling like he was witnessing something beyond ordinary understanding, yet natural in its existence. Their bond deepened in subtle ways. The panther began responding to simple gestures without hesitation. If he held out his hand, it would come closer. If he tapped lightly on the floor, it would move toward him. When he spoke softly, it would tilt its head, blink slowly, and sometimes rub against his leg. The veteran felt a connection that words could not capture. It was a partnership built on patience and respect, not dominance or fear. Even simple routines became moments of joy. Feeding, grooming, or cleaning wounds no longer felt like chores, but shared experiences. The veteran had lived a life filled with danger and solitude, yet in these quiet hours he found peace. The panther, too, seemed to find comfort in his presence. Its movements became smoother, its breathing steadier, and its trust in him unwavering. One afternoon, while the veteran repaired an old piece of machinery in his workshop, he heard the panther growl softly. It was a low, controlled sound that made him stop. Outside, he noticed movement near the edge of his property, a shadow slipping between the trees. His heart tightened. The panther's reaction told him that something or someone was approaching, and it was not ordinary. It was alert, but not scared. The veteran realized that whatever had left the panther, abandoned, might not have forgotten it. He called the panther to his side. It came immediately, brushing against him for reassurance. He could feel its strength now, even in its still growing body. Together, they moved quietly toward the back of the cabin, ready to watch and protect. The veteran's instincts were sharp, honed from years of experience, and he trusted the creature beside him completely. It was more than a companion. Now it was a partner. That night, they sat near the fire, both alert but calm. The veteran could see the panther watching the shadows outside, its glowing markings bright, almost defiant. He understood that it had survived abandonment, not just by luck, but by intelligence and instinct. He felt proud, not just of saving it, but of witnessing its resilience. In a way, the panther had saved a part of him too, reminding him of courage, patience, and the value of care. In the days that followed, their routine strengthened. The veteran continued feeding and tending to the panther, but he also let it explore more, climb trees, and test its strength in small ways. Each small triumph was celebrated silently, when it jumped over a log, when it caught a falling leaf, when it approached him without hesitation. Every act was proof that life could heal and trust could grow, even in the harshest conditions. The veteran reflected on the Panther's journey. From being abandoned and weak, it had begun to regain strength, intelligence, and awareness. And he realized that, like the Panther, he too had been abandoned by circumstances at times, left alone in moments of struggle, but had survived through patience and perseverance. Their lives were intertwined now, two survivors learning from each other. Sometimes the Panther would sit and simply watch him, eyes bright, glowing lines faintly moving along its fur. It was as if it was learning from him, studying him, and appreciating his presence. And the veteran would look back, feeling the same curiosity. Life had brought them together in an unlikely way, yet the connection was undeniable. By the end of Part 3, both the veteran and the Panther had grown stronger. The Panther had regained a measure of its physical strength. Its intelligence was clear, and its trust in the veteran had become complete. The bond between them was unspoken but deep, built on patience, care, and shared survival. Each day brought new discoveries, new small triumphs, and a growing sense that together they could face whatever challenges awaited beyond the safety of the cabin. The days after the Panther had regained some strength were quiet, almost too quiet. The veteran had grown used to the soft rhythm of life with his new companion, the gentle sounds of its breathing, the quiet clatter of tools as he worked on small repairs, the flicker of firelight in the evenings. It was a simple life, and for the first time in many years, he felt a sense of calm that was not forced by routine, but earned through care and patience. One evening, as the sun began to sink behind the trees lining his property, the veteran noticed something unusual. Shadows moved differently at the edge of the yard, and small glints of light reflected briefly between the branches. At first, he thought it was just the setting sun, playing tricks on his eyes. But then he felt the tension in the air, a kind he had learned to notice long ago. There was movement, deliberate and careful, like predators stalking their prey. He glanced at the Panther. Its ears twitched, and its glowing markings pulsed slightly brighter. The creature had sensed something before he even realized it fully. Its body tensed, muscles coiled, eyes fixed on the shadows. The veteran felt a surge of alertness he hadn't felt in years. He didn't know what was approaching, but instinct told him it was not ordinary. The veteran moved quietly to the window, careful not to make a sound. Through the glass, he could see figures moving among the trees, tall, precise, and coordinated. They didn't resemble humans he had seen before. Their movements were too smooth, almost mechanical in precision, and their forms had a strange, sleek appearance that made his heart beat faster. Whatever they were searching for something. He turned the Panther. It looked at him as if asking silently, "What do we do?" He placed a hand on its shoulder, feeling the warmth of its body beneath his fingers. "We stay calm," he whispered. "We wait and see." The Panther lowered its body slightly, a predator's stance, but did not attack. It trusted him to lead. That trust was a bond stronger than any weapon or strategy. For the next hour, they watched silently. The figures moved closer to the cabin, scanning the yard and the perimeter. The veteran's mind raced. He had no idea why they were here, whether they were hostile, or if they were searching for the Panther. But he knew he could not let them take it, not after everything he had done to help it recover. He felt a protective instinct rising in him that surprised even himself. The Panther's glowing markings flared softly, almost in response to his determination. It seemed to sense his resolve, and together they formed a quiet understanding. They would face this together. The veteran reached for a few tools he had kept nearby, not as weapons, but as ways to create obstacles if needed. He had no desire for violence, only a way to protect the creature he had saved. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped closer, moving directly toward the cabin. The veteran held his breath, his hand still resting on the panther. The creature let out a low growl, controlled but deep enough to send a warning. The figure paused, as if surprised by the sound, then slowly stepped back. The veteran felt a wave of relief, but knew this was only the beginning. He whispered to the panther, "Stay ready, but don't move unless I tell you." The creature lowered itself to the ground, tail brushing softly against the floor, eyes fixed on the approaching figure. Its breathing was steady now, not afraid, just focused. It had learned from him that fear was useless without preparation. An instinct without guidance could be dangerous. The figures lingered near the edge of the yard, scanning, communicating in subtle gestures that the veteran couldn't understand. He realized that they were intelligent, capable, and possibly dangerous. But they didn't yet know the panther's true strength. And the veteran was beginning to understand that the creature had powers and instincts that even these unknown visitors had underestimated. Night deepened, and the shadows merged with the darkness of the trees. The figures retreated slightly, but not entirely. The veteran stayed near the window, watching, learning their patterns, ready to act if needed. The panther sat beside him, still tense but calm, the glow from its markings casting soft light across the floor. He could feel its energy, its intelligence, and its readiness. Hours passed slowly, each one filled with a quiet tension that neither spoke of, but both felt. The veteran reflected on how far the creature had come from a battered, abandoned being to one capable of sensing danger and standing ready to defend itself. And yet, it was more than just strength. It was patience, intelligence, and trust that made it formidable. The veteran felt proud, not in a boastful way, but in a deep, human sense of connection and care. Suddenly, one figure broke away from the group and approached the cabin more boldly. The panther hissed softly, the sound resonating in a way that startled even the veteran. Its markings flared, brighter than he had ever seen. The figure froze for a moment, then moved back, hesitant. The panther's display was subtle, but clear, was warning them without attacking. The veteran realized that the creature had learned from him. Strength need not always be shown in force, but in control and presence. The rest of the night passed with careful observation. The figures eventually retreated to the shadows, disappearing from sight, but leaving a sense of unease. The veteran and the panther remained alert, knowing that this encounter was only the beginning. Yet, as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, he felt a quiet satisfaction. They had survived the night together, stronger and more connected than ever. After the figures disappeared, the veteran stepped outside cautiously, letting the panther follow. He surveyed the yard, checking for any signs of intrusion or damage. Everything seemed untouched. The panther padded silently beside him, calm but vigilant. He could feel the bond between them, strengthened by the shared experience of danger and survival. In the following days, the veteran began to notice changes in the panther. It moved with greater confidence, its gaze sharper, and its awareness of its surroundings nearly perfect. Its glowing markings seemed to respond to subtle stimuli, light, sound, movement in ways that were fascinating and a little mysterious. The veteran felt a sense of awe mixed with pride. He had saved it, yes, but it had also taught him something. Resilience is not just about physical strength, but about awareness, intelligence, and patience. He began to train it gently, not in the sense of command, but in coordination. Simple exercises, following gestures, moving quietly, observing without reacting impulsively. The panther picked up quickly, learning not because it was forced, but because it trusted him. Their relationship was no longer just caretaker and dependent. It was a partnership, built on shared experience and mutual respect. One evening, while sitting near the fire, the veteran realized something profound. He had spent years alone, surviving life's challenges in solitude. But in the panther, he had found companionship that transcended species or background. The creature had been abandoned, yes, but it had also survived and adapted, much like him. Their lives were intertwined now, each giving strength and purpose to the other. By the end of that week, the veteran felt ready to face whatever might come. The figures had not returned, but he knew they could. The Panther, once weak and abandoned, was now alert, intelligent, and ready. Together, they would face the world, whatever it might bring. The quiet cabin, once a place of simple routine, had become a stronghold of trust, care, and resilience. The veteran looked at the Panther one evening as it rested beside the fire, its markings glowing softly. He felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for its survival, but for the lessons it had taught him: patience, trust, awareness, and the quiet power of companionship. Life had brought them together in an unlikely way, yet the connection was undeniable. They were ready now, ready for challenges, ready for surprises, and most importantly, ready for each other. In the quiet of the cabin, under the soft glow of firelight and alien markings, two survivors, one human, one extraordinary, rested and prepared for whatever might come next. The days passed quietly. After the first night, the visitors had approached, but the veteran knew something was still out there. He had seen the precision of their movements, the way they had searched for the Panther, and he understood that their interest was not casual. They would return. The thought made him wary, but he also felt a strange sense of confidence. The Panther had grown stronger, more alert, and more aware of its surroundings. They were no longer victims. They were ready. One morning, the veteran noticed that the Panther was restless. It paced near the window, its ears swiveling, eyes sharp. The glowing patterns along its fur pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with its breathing. He had learned to read these signs. The Panther was sensing something he could not yet see. He followed its gaze toward the trees, where movement flickered like shadows dancing in the wind. The figures were back. They moved carefully, scanning the yard, analyzing every detail. The veteran stayed calm. He had seen threats before, and he had survived because of patience, observation, and understanding the behavior of both people and creatures. The Panther crouched beside him, ready but not anxious. It had learned to trust his decisions, and he had learned to trust its instincts. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped into the open. Its form was sleek, its movements deliberate. It carried an object that shimmered faintly in the morning light. The veteran noticed that it was not holding a weapon, at least not in the sense he understood, as something designed to capture or restrain. He knew they had come for the Panther. He whispered to the creature, "Stay calm. Let me handle this." The Panther's ears twitched, but it did not move. Its eyes followed the figure, assessing, calculating. The veteran realized that the Panther had learned more than he had thought. It could understand danger, and it could respond. But he also knew that the visitors had technology and strategies beyond anything he had faced. As the figure advanced, the veteran stepped forward and raised his hands in a gesture of caution. "I won't let you take it," he said firmly, his voice calm but resolute. The figure paused, its head tilting slightly, as if processing his words. Then it spoke, not in a language he could understand, but in a tone that carried authority. The other figures watched silently from the edge of the yard. The Panther shifted slightly, its body low, markings glowing brighter. The veteran felt the surge of energy radiating from it. It was not anger, not fear, it was power and awareness, controlled and precise. He had seen hints of it before, but now it was undeniable. The figure stepped back slightly, perhaps sensing that the Panther was not an ordinary creature to be taken lightly. Then the truth became clear in a way he had not expected. The Panther stepped forward on its own. Its gaze was fixed, and it made a low, resonant sound that filled the yard. The sound was not threatening, but it carried weight, a command that even the visitors could not ignore. The veteran watched in awe as the markings along the panther's fur brightened, forming patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with energy. The figures hesitated. One of them attempted to advance, but the panther's gaze and the resonating sound stopped it. It was a display of intelligence, power, and authority that made it clear the creature had not been abandoned for weakness. On the contrary, it had survived, adapted, and learned. It had been discarded not because it was useless, but because those who left it behind underestimated its capabilities. The veteran took a cautious step forward, placing himself slightly between the panther and the visitors. He realized that he did not need to fight. They were already assessing the panther and its abilities. He spoke softly, as if explaining to the creature, "You can handle this. I trust you." The panther's ears flicked, and it adjusted its stance. It was ready. The leading figure spoke again, this time more urgently. The veteran could feel that they were frustrated, perhaps even surprised. The panther's display had shifted the balance. They had expected fear or weakness, but instead they encountered confidence and intelligence. The veteran understood that the panther was not just a creature. They were witnessing something extraordinary, something that had survived challenges they had not anticipated. Suddenly, one of the figures made a small movement toward the panther. In an instant, the panther reacted. Its speed was incredible. It moved fluidly, positioning itself between the figure and the veteran. Its markings flared brightly, and the resonant sound echoed again. The figure froze, then retreated, signaling the others to fall back. The veteran realized that the panther had chosen not to attack aggressively, but had established dominance in a way that required no violence. The visitors finally stepped back, disappearing into the shadows, leaving the yard quiet once more. The veteran and the panther remained still, both aware that this was only a temporary victory. But the bond between them had grown immeasurably. The veteran reached out, and the panther pressed its head against his hand. No words were needed. They had survived together, and that was enough. After the visitors left, the veteran examined the panther more closely. Its movements were calm now, and its breathing steady. He realized that the creature had revealed its true strength and intelligence. It was not simply surviving. It had been guarding something important all along. And now, he understood that their connection was more than care and trust. It was a partnership that combined human experience and alien instinct, both of them stronger together than alone. He spent the rest of the day reinforcing the cabin, making sure the creature had places to hide and rest safely. But more than that, he spent time observing it, learning from it, and letting it guide him in ways he had not imagined. The panther's intelligence was remarkable. It seemed to understand strategy, awareness, and subtle communication. Together, they were not just defending against threats. They were learning to anticipate them. By evening, the veteran realized something else. The panther had been a guardian in its own world. Its skills, strength, and intelligence had been honed for survival, protection, and strategy. Its abandonment had not diminished its capabilities. It had only made it wiser, more careful, and more aware. And now it had chosen him as its companion. The veteran felt a profound sense of respect and gratitude. He had saved the panther, yes, but in return, it had taught him about resilience, trust, and partnership in ways that words could not capture. He realized that the bond between them was extraordinary, not just human and animal, but two beings recognizing strength, intelligence, and loyalty in each other. That night, as they rested near the fire, the veteran reflected on what had happened. The visitors had come, underestimated the creature, and been forced to retreat. But this was only the beginning. He understood that others might come, drawn by the panther's abilities, its presence, or something he could not yet understand. But he was ready. And more importantly, So was the panther. The glowing markings on the panther's fur pulsed softly in the dim light. It rested its head on the veteran's knee, eyes half closed, but alert. The veteran felt a deep sense of peace. They had faced the threat together, not with weapons, but with trust, understanding, and the unspoken bond they had developed. He realized that the most powerful strength often came from patience, care, and connection, not from force alone. By the end of the day, the veteran and the panther had both grown. The creature had revealed its true abilities and intelligence, and he had witnessed it firsthand. Their bond was unbreakable, forged in trust, care, and shared experience. The cabin, once a quiet retreat, had become a place of understanding, protection, and partnership. Outside, the world might bring challenges, but inside, they had each other, and that was enough to face anything that might come.